The Pittsburgh Steelers are built to win and built to win now, and the foundation is in place to have a winner here in Pittsburgh. Also, we're going to talk more about that tight end room and much, much more here on All About the Game. Welcome back to Mike Drop Sports and the podcast All About the Game. I'm your host, Jason. Today, we're going to be talking about why I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are built to win and built to win now with all the foundational pieces that they've acquired over the offseason and gained from the draft. Also, we're going to talk about that tight end room and why maybe you have seen this in the past, what the Steelers might be trying to do and might be setting up for this 2023-2024 season with that tight end group. So let's talk about that first, the tight end room. You guys may have seen this if you're a diehard Steelers fan, or if you paid attention here since about 2008, 2009 time period, when the Pittsburgh Steelers really utilized that tight end group. That tight end room was pivotal to what the Steelers were doing back then in 2009. They utilized the tight ends in a heavy way. Excuse me. The tight ends were like almost the centerpiece of that offense, besides the quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger at the time, who was dealing with some civil suits and things like that for some stupid things that he was doing off the field. So there was that turmoil going on in 2009. But I wanted you guys to just take a look back, if you get a chance, at how the Steelers utilized their tight ends and how they really made them one of the centerpieces, one of the focal points of that offense. And just why I reminded you guys of that is right now that I think the Steelers are gearing up to go back to that, to where this tight end room now features some elite talent. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, are ready to use those heavy tight end sets. And I think it's going to be one of the center points of this offense. And I think you're going to see heavy doses of these tight ends, and you're going to see them often. And I think it's going to set up good things for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's start off with the guy that's in the room right now that would be considered the veteran leader of that group. That will be Pat Freiermuth. Him and Zach Gentry, they've been in the building. They know the system now. They're ready to go. And Pat Freiermuth has just gotten better and better and better. And I think now we're heading into year 3 of Pat. And you're going to see a big explosion in his production this season, considering what I think the Steelers are about to do with these tight ends. Not to mention you're adding in that versatility of the Connor Heyward. Connor Heyward can play several different things. He's very versatile. So adding him to that tight end group last year, getting his feet wet, now moving into year 2, knowing more of the offense, knowing maybe more of what his role is going to be, I think now we're going to have more of a definitive path for him to follow, as opposed to him just floating around maybe at a fullback, H-back, whatever type position. I think Connor's going to be able to used everywhere. And I think that's going to really add to that tight end room. And then you have Zach Gentry, who should be really coming into his own. He can block. I feel like he's a good run blocker. I feel like he can catch here and there. I think, though, this should be the year that Zach Gentry really takes that leap, really takes that step to get better. And let's go to Pat Freiermuth, though. He's the man in charge. And then you put beside him Darnell Washington, who can block like a monster. His size is crazy. He has great catch radius, good hands. So we're adding that into that tight end room with Pat Freiermuth. So now you can put those two on the field with a Connor Heyward, and you are in a 3 tight end set, which should be right now pretty exotic for the NFL. Something different, a wrinkle we're adding back in from the past. So I'm thinking that is the path that the Steelers are wanting to take when they went in and got in the draft the Darnell Washington this year. They went out and got a Connor Heyward that they knew maybe what they kind of wanted to do with him in the future. They went out the draft before that and got a Pat Freiermuth, one of the better tight ends in that draft. So we have seen this steady progression of building up this tight end room to where I think that this could really pay big, huge dividends for a young Kenny Pickett in year 2 to be able to rely on those tight ends, play in heavy sets to where he's not going to be running for his life all the time. He can get his feet underneath him and really start to dissect defense and learn how to move his pieces around to counteract what the defense is doing against him. So I think that is really going to benefit Kenny. And Kenny just this year should be more healthy because of that, just being able to use those heavier packages. But I want you guys to go back and maybe look at some of those years, 08, 09, those types of years when the Pittsburgh Steelers were really utilizing that tight end room, and maybe just watch some of their games. I was the other day, and I was watching some of them, and I just hope the Steelers maybe get back to that. And it got my wheels turning as to what they were doing. And I was thinking about, hey, they've been building this tight end room now for 3 seasons. This is the 3rd season that they've been adding and building to this tight end room. Is that what we're going back to? The heavy monster sets where we can run the football with Najee and Jaylen Warren. We now, we can throw the ball out of that with big time pass catchers and Darnell Washington. Pat Freiermuth has already proved that he can catch passes. Connor Hayward is an elite receiver, if you ask me, with his hands. I'm not saying he's one of the best in the game or anything like that. Don't take it out of context, guys. But I'm saying Connor Hayward can play ball and he can be versatile. So you're adding those guys running 3 tight end sets. Hell, 4. I don't know. I mean, you got them. Use them. So you could be rotating 2 tight ends in there all the time and adding different layers all the time with the Connor Hayward, versatility, with the Darnell Washington size and ability to run block and pass catch. Pat Freiermuth, his ability to run routes and get open and catch the football in big moments. Zach Gentry can run block. Add him and Connor together and put Darnell and Pat out there together. Mix it up, add different layers. And I think that's where the Steelers are headed. And I think in 2023, 2024, you are going to be so surprised of how much they utilize that tight end room. And I know we got some weapons on the outside with George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Calvin Austin, hopefully, Allen Robinson. And I know those guys are going to be utilized, and we're going to get back there in the shotgun and throw the football around. But you add them in with that tight end wrinkle, it's going to add something different. And that's what you have to do to win in the NFL. You have to be different. And even if that means you bring things back that you've done in the past, but you're adding new layers and adding different wrinkles to that also. But you're bringing something new, something fresh, something that you haven't done in recent times, to where now it's something the teams can't really prepare for because they don't know what you're really doing. So that's just my take on that tight end room. And I think it's going to be special here this season. And I think it's going to benefit our year 2 quarterback. And I think it'll benefit that offensive line to have guys that can get open quickly in tough situations and they can help them block. So I think it just adds another layer to that, So there's just several things I think a good tight end room can benefit. And a good tight end room can get you out of certain situations because you're able to do different things, especially with versatile players. So, guys, let's just keep an eye out on that. We have training camp coming up here in, 15, 16 days. So let's really watch that tight end room and see what the Pittsburgh Steelers actually do with it and see what Matt Canada can come up with. And hopefully he's able to utilize that room and really take the steps to get to where he needs to be and get this offense moving. So let's move on, guys. I want to move on to why I think the Pittsburgh Steelers have that foundation laid. And I want to start with why I think it's all going to work. And that is the offensive line. And the offensive line has been rebuilt. I've been going through some lists here of the players that they currently have on the list that are on the roster, the 90-man moving into training camp. And we are loaded with offensive linemen. I mean, we're going down to guys named Jared Williams, Ryan McCullum, Spencer Anderson, Dylan Cook, William Dunkel. All these players that you may never have heard of. Some of them I haven't paid attention to. I know that, a couple of them. But most of them I've heard of. But still, you have so many people in that room. So I want you guys to remember, you're going to see a lot of these offensive lineman pieces move in and out of training camp, move in and off the roster, because they're going to make room to, one, look at other players at other positions because they are abundant at that position right now. And maybe not in talent or anything, I don't know. But they're abundant with people right now. But I do think they have a lot of talent. But they're abundant with players, so they can move those guys around and it not kill that offensive line group and not kill the competition in that room for training camp. So they're able to add and subtract there quite easily with the amount of players that they have. But that's where I think the foundation starts and why the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be much improved this season. The additions of Isaac Samalu. You have guard Nate Herbig that came in. You have a James Daniels returning, who was arguably probably the best offensive lineman last season. You have Dan Moore, who can play right tackle, left tackle. You have a number one selection in Broderick Jones, who some say he can't pass block. Some say, yeah, he can run block, but he got to work on the pass block. We'll see. He's a young kid, man. Let him get the pads on before everybody gives their assessment of him. I don't know yet. Do I think that he has first-round talent? Absolutely. Do I think that he could start in this league? Absolutely. Do I think he's a day one starter? I don't know. We have to see once they get in gear and start smacking each other around. That's when we'll know. That's the only time we'll know. Until then, it's very much speculation, and that's just all we can do. But right now, on paper, with what the Steelers have assembled in that room and had from last year, so they added a great deal to that room, I feel that they've built that foundation. You have a Super Bowl. He played in a Super Bowl. Isaac Samalu, like he has that veteran leadership now, that knowledge of winning, that knowledge of getting to the big game, that veteran presence that's going to allow others around him to feel calm and feel ready to go in big time situations. It's just a natural thing that's going to happen. They're going to look to Isaac and say, hey, bro, you've been there, man. Let's follow Isaac's lead, you know? And then Broderick Jones, a young talent. We've added young talent. So you have a great mix. And I think that foundation there in that room is going to prove to be the start of something special in the city of Pittsburgh for I will say several years if they can get it moving and keep these guys on the roster and remain healthy. But that's my number one reason why I think the Steelers have built that foundation. And then you move into the quarterback position. Kenny Pickett in year 2, if he's able to play in a stable offense and being allowed to audible and being allowed to change things a little bit. I'm not saying give him full reign, but if you don't trust your quarterback, you didn't pick the right guy, period. I don't care what people say. You have to let him be able to start calling audibles. You have to let him start being more comfortable with making his own decisions. I'm not saying you give it all to him week 1, but throughout this season, you need to allow Kenny to progress and you need to allow him to be able to change things around and move it around to where he's most comfortable and plays to his strengths. But that's what you got to see in Kenny. That progression. And this is going to be the year, maybe next year even. Maybe he's just mediocre this year and gets the Steelers to where they need to be by just being serviceable. We'll see. But these are the next year to 2 years to where we should see the biggest growth in Kenny Pickett. And I think we're going to see it here with the additions to that foundational piece, the offensive line. You've got to have a solid offensive line. You got to have a solid defensive line. Those two things are the start of it all. And we've all heard it all before, but that's what it is. You've got to have those two things. So Kenny Pickett should benefit from that, year 2 leap of his own. And he should benefit from that offensive line, which is going to create my third point. Najee Harris in that run game. It's only natural when you have the foundation built up front for Najee Harris and Jalen Warren to increase their averages on their yards per carry. Hopefully they're at a 4 clip or something, 4.2, 4.1 yards per carry, something like that. That would be amazing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it would really prove to be a nice jump for Najee Harris and Jalen Warren to be able to average nice, steady, middle-of-the-road yardage. If you're ripping off 4 or 5 yards first, second down, you're in good shape for third down. 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 is manageable. 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 6. You start to get a little bit more, it starts to get a little tougher. So that run game will benefit from that foundational piece. So there is another piece, the run game. Now you have that play action game with the speedsters that you hopefully will have in Calvin Austin. Deontay Johnson is a fast fast receiver. He can get down the field too. George Pickens, tall, lengthy, big guy, can get down the field too. You're going to be able to open that up with there. There's yet another piece that you need to be able to be good in this league. And I think the Steelers are getting back to what the Steelers were built on. And I know a lot of people say you can't win in this league with defense and running the football and play action pass, but I beg to differ. We've seen it work a lot. And I think the Steelers are going to be able to open up a lot of doors with their play action pass, with the run game, with Kenny Pickett. And I just think those three right there, big foundational pieces, guys, huge. And I think also we talk about that defense. That defense should be good on paper. As long as we can get Joey Porter, Corey Trice, those corners to step up and help out Patrick Peterson and Levi Wallace. Does Joey Porter Jr. and Corey Trice have to be day one starters? Absolutely not. You have men that are serviceable at those positions right now that can hold the fort down, mentor the younger guys, let them get their reps, let them learn the speed, and I think you're going to be in good shape. I think the inside linebacker room may be better than we thought also. The defensive line has been built up a little bit with Ogunjobi being healthy now. Cam Hayward, I'm sorry, guys, some call him old. I call him a stud, period. That's just what he is. He gets better. He's like fine wine. He keeps aging and getting better, period. I don't care what anybody says. I feel like whenever you have your star player, TJ Watt, go out and you have the burden of carrying a defense and you don't miss a game and you're still there making plays, your statistics may not be number one on the shelf, but guess what? Your leadership, your ability to keep playing, keep digging, keep trying to make big plays, keep working at it, and still producing at some level, producing at a quality level is second to none. Cam Hayward is a man amongst boys sometimes. He's a beast, in my opinion, and I think he really makes this defense a lot better. Then you move to that outside linebacker area. TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Herbig, period. Those guys, I think they're going to come together. I think you're going to see a healthy TJ this season. And I think we're going to be able to rotate TJ out a little bit and keep him a little bit fresher with Alex Highsmith in yet another year. Hopefully with a Herbig that can come through, a Golden, a veteran guy can rush the passer. I think there's options there, and I think they can rotate guys in and out and be able to keep people fresh and keep that pass rush coming. Having a healthy defensive line. Hopefully DeMarvin Leal takes a step. Hopefully Keanu Benton takes a step on that defensive line. There's several guys. Let's see about that safety position. How does Minka come and respond to being the leader in that defensive backfield? How does Keanu Neal? How does, all the other defensive backs just rally around back there and start to get some turnovers? And you have a DeMonte Casey who has a knack for the ball, along with a Patrick Peterson who has that ability to find the football. I think we could be setting up to watch the Steelers have a lot of interceptions and a lot of turnovers. And I think it could pay big for the Pittsburgh Steelers. When you keep getting the ball back, eventually something good's going to happen for Kenny Pickett in that offense. I don't care. You're going to keep giving them chances. They're pros. They're going to get it done one way or another, and at least keep you in games. And hopefully, with that offense being able to run the football, utilize the play action pass, hopefully that will be this team's best defense by keeping the defense fresh, not always out on the field, not having tons of 3 and outs. But you can see where I'm going with this, guys. This is the foundation. Look across this roster and you can see the foundation has been set on paper. Am I anointing them as the champions right now? Absolutely not. In my head, do I think that they could really take a step and compete for it? Yeah, I do. I do, guys. And I think you're about to see something special. I think you're about to see some things from the past mixed with a little bit of new school. You have Mike Tomlin, a steady hand still at the helm, and he remembers what works and what didn't work. And he has now a roster that is built to win and built to win now. So this is just some of the things that I wanted to talk about. I hope you enjoy coming through Mike Drop Sports. I hope you enjoy the podcast all about the game. I'm your host, Jason. Don't forget, crash the subscribe button because we're growing every day. I appreciate it. Keep on watching Mike Drop Sports and the podcast all about the game.